Hey guys, it's ANicWin, also known as Amy, and happy Monday. I hope you're having a lovely day. I'm very excited about today's build for multiple reasons. The the biggest reason is this is part of the Back to Basics collab that asimsa has hosted, and I may have mispronounced her name. I'm terrible with names. I apologize if I have, but if you haven't seen her beautiful builds floating around on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, I'm going to link her channel below, as well as her other socials. Be sure to go check her out. She's super talented, super kind, super wonderful, and I was absolutely thrilled that she asked me to be a part of this. There are also a ton of other creators who have participated in this collab, and I'm not sure how that will be linked, but it will be linked below. I'll either create some sort of playlist so that you can go watch things, or I'll link socials. I'm not really sure how I'll do it, but I will be sure to give you access to that as well. Just check the description for that, or I'm sure you'll be able to search the hashtag Back to Basics and find it that way, because I know people were doing Instagram only, some are Tumblr, some are Twitch, some are YouTube. We're kind of spread out across the map, but I digress. The second reason I'm super excited is this is a museum. Now I love building community lots. I don't do them a ton just because I could easily oversaturate my channel with those kinds of builds. And I've never attempted a base game only community build or a museum, which is what this is technically. So lots of firsts for me. First collab, first base game only community build, first museum. We love to see it. But the premise behind this build is that this is, and you might see it as it's taking shape here, the general idea is that this is a science museum modeled after a planetarium. It's not exactly a planetarium just because we don't have a lot of that functionality in the game. And I will say this has been play tested, it's fully functional, and it's not just one of those museums where you have your sim visit and you kind of just like walk around and sit on a bench. Like, I actually have some usable items, some skill building items and things like that for various ages. The only age group I did not cater to is toddlers, and that's just because it felt not, real inappropriate, I guess, unrealistic. I'm not really sure, but they're the only ones not represented here. But teens, child age sims, and then of course adults of all ages will be welcome here. They'll have a ton of fun, stuff like that. I think this would be a great family activity, but you could of course use it as a date as well. So since it's a planetarium, I focused mainly on rocket, like science, space exploration, rocket ships, things like that. And you'll kind of see that in the details. Now there are some components that I wish I had access to that are outside of base game, and they're very small, very, very small, like detailed objects. Like there's a plaque that kind of comes with, I want to say Get Together, I might be wrong. I didn't have access to that, so some of the, like, the plaques that tell you about the displays, some of that looks a little weird. I had to use the book that you unlock with the writer career that I think is some sort of award. It's been a long time since I've read the description, so don't hold me to that. But we made it work. I think it looks really realistic. It looks pretty good, obviously, because I built it. And you'll have to let me know what you think. So we're working on the exterior. I kind of looked up, what's that planetarium called? It's in LA. I think everybody's seen it. If you watched the Adele Christmas special concert thing that she put on, she was there. I can't think of the name of it at this point in time, but I kind of modeled this after that, only in the sense that I didn't know exactly how I wanted the exterior to look, like what shape I should use and things like that. And I didn't want to go too boxy, and I really like what I settled on. And I will say, you notice the domed roof. I am going to put a telescope inside, and it does work. Now I did have to shrink it down one little, bracket key down, and it's still fully functional. I did play test it. It doesn't cause any issues. Your sim looks a little weird going through the door just because it's a little bit smaller, but I didn't have any routing issues even with it being on a platform. The animations all still worked correctly, and I have no idea. I mean, obviously the skill building worked, but I have no idea if there's any sort of like special interaction that might be blocked with the telescope being inside. I did not check for that. I honestly don't ever use that object, so I don't even know what could feasibly happen to your sim if you use it. Like, I don't know if there's any sort of like funny interaction. I don't know. I don't know. I don't play with it. I played with the telescope all the time in The Sims 2, and The Sims 4, it just seems meh. It's there, you know? It exists. You can use it for woohoo. That does work. I didn't play test that, but I mean, that's an option that you have. And then we're doing the landscaping here. I wanted it to look kind of stately, put together, but I also wanted it to look inviting and welcoming. And so I use these debug fences that kind of look like they have a French country theme to them. They're kind of eroding a little bit. They've been here, they've been well loved, I think. I wanted it to feel like the museum had been here for a while. Maybe it's overgone some changes, you know, in the course of its life. Maybe it was a different building before it was this and it was renovated. I mean, sky's the limit. Oh man, that was punny. But anyway, sky is the limit, so you can kind of take it whichever direction you want to take it with that. I threw a bird bath here in the front yard. I really, for no other reason other than I liked it. I thought it looked nice, and it doesn't really serve a purpose. And then in the other half of the yard, I place one of the scaled up rocket ship things. I think it's a trophy. I'm actually honestly not sure what half of the things are in base game, because it's there's so much to the Sims 4 catalog that it's hard to know what each item is meant for. All I know is it's decoration, but it is an unlock, I believe. So I am playing with unlock, so you'll have to play with, you know, all the cheats and stuff like that on, but you shouldn't have any issues with playability if you don't have it turned on. I think everything will still place as long as move objects is enabled. Hopefully. I'm going to have to test that out just to be extra sure, because I didn't think about that until just now. I also, it's worth noting, did not use any objects that came with like pre-orders or any sort of holiday gifts or anything like that that you had to download anything specific for or sign up for anything specific for. So it should be everything that comes in just an update or just with base game in general. So there shouldn't be any sneaky surprises. But that's pretty much it for the front yard here. I do some terrain painting as normal, and then we're going to place some lights just to kind of brighten the place up. I really like this build. I think it looks so soft and so elegant, and honestly, I'm obsessed. I don't know, maybe that's weird to say, but I am. And I decided to kind of incorporate a more modern door here in the back, and I think I used one on the interior as well, because so much of the exterior is more traditional, and it felt like a good juxtaposition between traditional and modern to include the two. Now in the backyard, there's not a whole lot of space. I did that on purpose. You're not really going to have a backyard space in a building like this. You might have like a parking lot, but we don't need parking lots. So I decided to kind of place this area where you can come out here and build a rocket ship. Now, I had access to build it. My sim is able to work on it. What I'm not sure of is if the progress will save. So if you continue to return to this lot, if you'll be able to continue your progress. However, even if you can't, your sim will still gain the skill building interaction, like their skills will go up. So that was really what I was concerned about, and it worked, so I can't say I complain. Hopefully it does save your progress and you don't have to start from scratch every single time, but if it doesn't, I do apologize. I just simply didn't know. And this is me right here fighting with the tool mod. I wanted that plant to be on the ground but didn't want to lower the foundation, so you live and you learn. And then we move into the interior. So this is kind of like an entryway. You might hear it called a foyer. I always have said vestibule. Maybe they're the same thing, maybe they're not, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. You be the judge of that. But this is basically just kind of like an area where you come in, maybe you're taking coats off, you're changing, you know, getting out of your winter gear into something a little bit more appropriate, you're having a seat waiting for family members, stuff like that. This is not part of the museum, it's just an entryway as you're preparing to go inside. And then this will be the first thing you see. Now I was going to do a little ticket booth here, but since you don't have to purchase ticket booths, I didn't feel like it was necessary, so I placed that astronaut statue that's pointing. It looks like they're saying to infinity and beyond with a little light up sign behind it as if it's the name of the museum and maybe one of the founders or someone that they've, you know, attributed this to. And then the bathrooms are right behind that. So there's another seating area that you saw. It's not part of the museum display, and there's 2 bathrooms, but they're both for both genders, so it doesn't really matter. I just wanted there to be 2 toilets. Now, because I am not thinking that toddlers are going to be on this lot, I did not include a toddler potty. This is strictly just a toilet, a sink, some decor, and you'll notice that I do place a bulletin board. It looks like you can pull things off of it. I feel like that is a notice board, like fun summer programs for your kids, now hiring, things like that, just like things that you could do. And they put it in the bathroom because it's a guaranteed space that people will see it if they wish. Maybe that's strange. I don't know. I've always seen stuff like that in bathrooms, so I don't know. Kentucky could just be backwards. That's a very strong possibility. And then we're going to move on here to the very first display, I guess is what I'm going to call it, because I can't think of the other word right at this particular moment. But this is, I believe, it's not a telescope. What is it called? Yep. I can't remember. This is the thing that microscope, is that right? You look at things and it takes the little minuscule pictures of things. I'm going to go with microscope. I should have prepared before I did this voiceover. It's ginormous as per usual, but I place one there. I like to think that it looks kind of vintage and not like a current one. And then I place this little display. I am going to put it on a platform as well. I wasn't going to, and then I decided to do it just because it's going to cut into where the windows are a little bit, but I didn't want to move the windows, and in hindsight that probably would have been just an easier thing to do. Here we are. But this is my idea of maybe a look at what people use at home. I don't know, like gear and stuff that people have had access to over the years. I don't think anything that you're going to see in the museum is necessarily current. I think all of this is what we use to get to where we are now, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit of a historical component to it as well. I decided to go with a purplish blue one and a black one instead of the black and orange like I had, just because I didn't want the interior to be too matchy-matchy. And then this area, I know that's a gaming pad and it doesn't really make sense, but in my head, it's like a VR station where you can stand and experience space. Of course, if you stand there, your sim is really going to play a game that looks like Tetris, and that's fine. That's fine. It's for the aesthetic, not really for the actual functionality and purpose. And your sim's gaming skill will be built up by that. So far, that's at least 2 skills that you're going to, well, 3 skills that you're going to earn just by visiting the lot, which I kind of like. That sparks joy for me. And then we're going to move over here to the 4th display thing. I really cannot think of what they're called. I know words until I do the voiceovers and then they're just gone. But this, I'm imagining, is like a replica of the office of the first sim who built the first rocket ship, maybe, or had the idea to go to space in the first place. So we've got their desk, we've got a little map that I'm imagining was maybe launch points and landing points. We've got their computer with that amazingly retro looking thing. We've got some parts as if he was looking at little mock-ups and blueprints and things like that. Of course, there is a plant just to kind of give it a little bit of pizzazz, a little rug, and then I include this rocket ship poster that I almost never use. It's a little bit lewd, but it felt like it was a good fit for this space. And then we move on here to another little seating area. It was going to be another display and I hated the way that it looked. I just didn't like the symmetry, which is so new for me. Normally I like symmetry, but it just wasn't looking good. And then this is the final display area on exhibit. That's the word. The final exhibition on the bottom floor. And this is really just sort of more old things like awards, original pieces and stuff like that you can look at and be like, oh, okay, so this is how far we've come. You know how museums work, guys. I don't know why I'm explaining it like that. But that's pretty much it for the bottom floor. It is really where you're going to do the bulk of the viewing and things like that. And then upstairs is a little bit more interactive, believe it or not. So here is the telescope, not stethoscope. And it's not sized down yet. I don't size it down until I play test. And the only reason I had to size it down is because when you use it, the part that like goes up and spins to look at space was sticking through the domed roof and it just wasn't the vibe. So that's why I shrunk it down to avoid that. With it shrunken down, it doesn't do it. If you prefer it at its normal size, you can put the normal sized one back in its place, and as long as you don't mind it glitching through the roof a little bit, then it'll still function properly. Now this room I am thinking is kind of like a lab area for the people that work in the museum. I don't necessarily think this is a place that you can go in and view and interact. Maybe you have access to it from time to time, but for the most part it's just for you to look through and observe. And this room specifically is for creatures that they found in space. Maybe they're live, or well, yeah, some of them are live, some of them are jarred. It's a little bit morbid because they're next to each other, but I feel like the museum workers are kind of up here monitoring and learning about these different creatures and things like that to further our knowledge, which is, how it works. It's a thing. I do put some decorations, and I think just a rug. I initially had a bench in here and it felt weird, so I think I got rid of it, but maybe I'm lying. Maybe I kept it. I don't know. I can't remember. We're gonna find out together. And it's just a neutral rug. It's not anything crazy. Okay, no, I don't put a bench in here, but I do put a plaque just in case. Like I said, maybe sometimes you have access to the room, but I wasn't really thinking that you would. And then this room is kind of the opposite. This is all about elements and things that get pulled from space. Now, not every single thing you're going to see came from space, but it looks like it could have been from a planet, off sim, Earth, whatever. So I kept it in anyway, and these are really just all the collectible rocks and stuff that your household can accrue over time. It's also not every single one in the game because it is only the base game item. So if you download this and you have other packs, feel free to add whatever you have or take away whatever you don't like into this room. I also wasn't thinking that Sims had access to this. I think this is another workstation where you can look in, you can view. Maybe you can go in on a special tour, but for the most part, you don't have access to touch these things. And we're in here for quite a while because I didn't realize how much was included in base game. I also don't know if you guys ever play with the household collections. I don't really collect the items in the game. Like if I'm foraging for stuff, it's mostly just because my sim is poor and we've got bills to pay and I need them to sell a time capsule or something. But there are a ton. If you've ever looked at it, there are so many objects that your Sims could collect. And I don't know if it carries over through generations. I want to say it does. But on the off chance it doesn't, that would be terrible. But you just have to find the object. It goes into your collection. You don't have to keep it. And then there's a little menu where you can go and check and see what you've got. And it'll count. It always shows it grayed out with a question mark over it until you find it. And then it'll kind of give you a description of, or maybe it just gives you a picture. I thought it gives you a description though of what it is you found, where you found it, something like that. It's a really cool feature. I don't know if it's a feature that's used by many. I use it from time to time if I'm focusing on something. For example, if you play the Not So Berry challenge by Lil Simsy, and I can't remember who else helped her come up with that right at this moment, but if you ever played that, Generation 1 is in the science career and you have to complete your element collection, that's where you can see if you've completed the collection in its entirety or not, or that's an example for when you would use it. I'm feeling a little rambly because this is my second voiceover today and this is a really long one, so forgive me. But we're putting the final touches on this room now. I know I told you this was going to be more interactive, and the first two rooms that we used were not interactive at all. I promise we're going to get there. Just give it a second. But yeah, I really liked this build. As I said, just full disclosure, I don't think I'll ever build another museum in the game. This was a fun experience. It was one that I'd recommend if you're a builder at all, but it's not one, I just don't feel like the museum lots are that dynamic. You know what I mean? It's good to have one or two amongst all of the worlds if you have a full set, but really you only need one in the game to go to every now and then. Maybe you can cycle them out if you have a few that you like, but you really don't need more than one placed at a time just because there's not a whole lot of functionality in them. There's not a whole lot to do. It's really just a pretty lot. And if you like decorative lots and it's up your alley, I prefer lots that are a little bit more alive, if that makes sense. And that's why I made this one a little bit more interactive. Now this over here is the kids section. I was initially going to put up a wall with an archway just to kind of separate the spaces, but the way that I did the two like work rooms, it just wasn't going to work out. So I left it open, and I felt like since it was upstairs, that was kind of fair to do. So we have two chemistry stations for the child sims to kind of mess around with and play around with. And I'm gonna take forever to pick a rug. Let's not worry about that. I add some decoration as if a sim has been up here recently. So we've got a lunchbox and then just some artwork and stuff like that, just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. And then I placed two, what are those? The drawing stations. That's not what that's called. The drawing table, I think that's what it is. Just because I feel like when you're in science, you're drawing a lot, maybe not to like the quality of an artist, but you're drawing what you see typically, or at least I did. And it felt kind of natural to have that table there for them to kind of play around with. So your child age sims can also gain some skills here as well. And then this section of the build is really just kind of like another exhibit, but not really. It's more of a cast off. This is kind of something where you can come up. There's a few other odd bits and ends, but really this is just where you come up for when your kid is bored and they want to kind of do something on their own. And you know, the adults can sit out in that little entry, top of the stairs area, whatever that would be called, and either watch the scientists at work while they're watching their kids, or just like take a moment to themselves to have a seat. But that's pretty much it for the build, guys. I'm going to leave you here to wrap it up and hit the screenshots. As always, feel free to leave a like or comment down below letting me know what you think. You can also subscribe if that's something that would spark joy for you. I will be posting the screenshots on Instagram if you want to head over there and check those out. I will see you on Wednesday with my next build, and in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely day and a lovely rest of your week. Bye, guys.